So good morning from my side to everyone here in the call. Thank you for joining me and having me for my presentation on knowledge management and knowledge transfer. I just want to go on a meta floor with you now to look at it. What is knowledge management? Because knowledge management is often the thing you put into wikis, as we heard before, which is was really interesting for me to getting so deep into the context. But knowledge management starts way earlier, and that's even that people don't know in the company what they should what they should know to get more forward. And the problem there is often that they don't know how knowledge is acquired. They don't know where the knowledge lies. Little spoiler, mostly in the head, and how it get out of the head and into the company. So let me start with the definition of knowledge. What is knowledge? This is the knowledge staircase from Professor Dr. North, a German, who does nothing else than knowledge management. I learned a lot from him. So when we look at this stair, we start on the left-hand corner down. You see characters. Characters define things 0, 1 in the IT. But we also have characters like, for example, an O, an R, an E, a T, an F, an S. And if you put it rightly together, you get the data, and the data says forest. Now you have the information forest, what you know about forest. Some of them know, yeah, it's a bunch of trees somewhere way out in the land. But others can also say, yes, but there are different kinds of forests. There are conifer forests, there are maple trees, there are beech trees. So you can enrich your knowledge and get to some more proficiency, even if you work perhaps with this forest. If you are a logger or somebody else who works in the forest, you get even more proficiency. And if you have enough proficiency, you can go into action. Into action means you can do things rightly, effectively, and efficiently. Now, if you do that over time, you get to expertise and you become an expert. And then you are into competitiveness also as a company. So if you go the stair up from characters to competitiveness, you are in operational knowledge management. And if you go the stair down from competitiveness to characters, you are in the strategic knowledge management. So that's all the basic thing about knowledge. Now, when we look into where knowledge management, sorry, not knowledge management, but knowledge lays, then I always take the iceberg, because like in an iceberg, you see a lot of them above the waterline, but the most part is below the waterline. This applies as well to a single person, as well to a company. 10 to 20% is explicit knowledge, and the rest, 80 to 90% is implicit knowledge. Now, when do we talk about explicit knowledge? Documentation, manuals, filing systems, wikis, of course, are these explicit knowledge. But the main part, which lays onto one, is things you have in your head as an employee. You have the relationships, you know how to take action, you can explain the linkages, you have the experience, you have mostly expert knowledge about whatever is in your company: machines, customers, suppliers, systems, processes, procedures. And this is mostly in your head. It's in the mind, it's in the head, and it's not gone explicit yet. You can do that, which is rather difficult, and not everything goes from implicit to explicit. For example, as a kid, you learned probably swimming, and you know how to swim by trying and suffocating perhaps, but you learned how to swim. You find a very rare literature about how to learn swim. There is literature about how crawling goes, how whatever. I'm not a swimmer, I must say, but how you learn the basics of swimming, there is no book about it. Why? Because it goes from explicit when you learn it, goes to implicit, and you do it automatically. And the same is when you work. The longer you work on a certain theme, on a certain method, on a certain system, the more you do it automatically. And it's difficult to write it down or to explain it to somebody so it can go from implicit to explicit. But this is where the gold lies for a company. 60 to 80% of the word Wertschöpfungskette of a company lays into knowledge. So the problem also for a company is knowledge is fluid. The brain comes in with the employee, it works, and then it leaves the company again in the brain. And the company really misses this knowledge. Now, when we look at the stair again, then we see where knowledge is kept. You have these wiki things, you have intranets, you have databases, it lays in SharePoints, in manuals, whatever you can write down. The problem is it lays here. It lays exactly in the point where information gets to knowledge. No, so somebody comes new into the company. He looks into the wiki. He searches for information, and he get a little bit of knowledge. But when this person leaves the company again, the knowledge is gone. So the next person who replaces the first one comes in again, starts exactly at the same point. Requires information from wikis, from databases, from SharePoint, acquires a little knowledge, and leaves the company again. So the thing here is that the knowledge gap you acquire as a company in changing personnel gets wider and wider. And we all know that information and knowledge uh, becomes bigger every day. And even I don't know exact figures now, but Google just said that the amount of knowledge we have doubles, I think, every year in the meantime. So you can imagine how this knowledge leaves the company, what the problem is then. Now, what can we do? Knowledge can be transferred. It can be transferred in exchange, in personal exchange, learning from each other, learning circles, working out loud, things like that. It goes from head to head. How can you do that? You can do that mainly in audio, in video, and in personal exchange. When you establish that in your company, then you really are going up the stairs and you come to the competitiveness and to the real knowledge you should have in your company available for everybody, or at least for the person who really needs it. Now, I want you to show a little glimpse to a knowledge management toolbox. What can you use? There are lots of tools you already have, but you can use them extremely well for knowledge management. We're thinking about podcasts, audio recording, cell phone movies. That's really no problem today. You can film whatever you want, make a little movie, not a long movie, 2-3 minutes, that's okay, just to show how you do things when you work with machines, when you do whatever you have to do in a work hall or whatever. You can do podcasts or audio recording, for example, when you screen shares, when you have this these clicking things everybody puts into Word. You describe what you do, and then you have the screenshot there. That's extremely inefficient what you do there. You can do recording, screencasting, even with PowerPoint. You can do screencasting, and you have a little film of 5 minutes where you explain what you do, what one sees on the screen. You put it into a SharePoint, and it's available for everybody who works with this software. So you can also dub your PowerPoints. In every company, there are tons and millions of files of PowerPoint. But if you do good PowerPointing, I'm not so good sometimes, you only have these 3 to 5 points on your single foil. And this says nothing to somebody who hasn't listened to the audio spur there and listens, what does she or he say to these single points. Expert directories, so-called yellow pages, where everybody writes down who he is, what he does, why he does it, and what his special interest is. So if you're looking for expertise in a company, you can go to these yellow pages and look up who could help you probably with your problem. That's a simple thing you can do. You can do it also in a wiki, no problem, so that everybody finds everybody else. These are things that one can do. That's every single person who can really acquire knowledge for others. The other things is, which goes from head to head, is knowledge maps for individuals or for teams. You can do little lessons learned every week, 15 minutes. What have I learned this week? Which could be a super thing for my colleagues. And you can really do whatever you want on discussion rounds, on selected topics, whatever you find it's fine to have. The thing is, you should talk to each other. You don't have to be in your tube where you can't go out and nobody knows exactly what you're doing. It always is good to share your knowledge, how small it is. If you want, you can record this little discussion round, so it could be also for people who were not available then. Now, knowledge management, when you look it up in the employee life cycle, you can use it in every time cycle you have. For example, for onboarding. You can accelerate the onboarding up to 30 to 40% if you do a structured onboarding with knowledge management. I'll show you afterward how this could acquired. You can but also use it in offboarding. You can support project phases. You can do handovers in projects or in certain aspects, expertises you have. You can also diffuse risks with missing key persons. So if you have one person who knows everything about this little machine standing in the hallway in the left corner, and this person gets ill or leaves the company, and you have nobody who knows how this machine works, this you could also diffuse. And of course, in daily business, whenever you find it necessary to share knowledge, so that colleagues can support you, that they can do their job better. Now, knowledge management in the event of personnel changes. This is the point in the employee life cycle where also the boss realizes, whoops, knowledge is leaving the house, which is no good. To avoid this, you could already in front look who is a knowledge bearer in your company. Use this traffic light system. So if you have people who work mainly on structured things and structured workflows, this person is probably green because this procedure, this process is described, the workflow works without the person, and you don't have to do anything special when this person leaves. But, oh, I'm sorry. But you have probably risk holders. So people who have a specialized expertise on something, they mainly do procedural work, but they have some special things they do. They are the only person in the company. Uh, they they know about it. So this person is on a traffic light, an orange person. So perhaps these special things you should work on it to bring it from implicit to explicit. And then you have this red person, an expert on something. When this person leaves the company, you really have a problem. You should also look at risk people, people who are ill, people who work too much, people who never take vacation. There, the risk is really high that they leave have a sick leave within days if they have a heart attack or whatever, which happens from time to time, unfortunately. So check the risk. In the next, I think, 5 to 10 years, 10 million employees in Germany alone leave to retirement. From these 10 million, probably a lot are experts on something. So people and mainly HR should plan retirement. I mean, retirement is a little bit like Christmas. It appears out of nowhere. It suddenly it's Christmas time. So suddenly this retirement is here. I sometimes get calls from people who want to have a knowledge transfer, and they tell me, "Yeah, Mr. Uh, Smith is leaving the company after 30 years, and he is really a valuable employee." I think, okay, so yeah, we should do something. When does he leave? He leaves within the next 3 weeks. That's not the thing you should do. Please plan it. If somebody is over 10 years in the company, leaves, then plan it at least a half year before. So then you have the chance to really get his knowledge out of his head. So plan it, please. And just look if you should have a structured knowledge transfer accompanied early as possible. Also, if somebody leaves within 3 months, plan the knowledge transfer at the beginning of this leave time and not at the end. Because planning is half the battle. First of all, you should clarify the topics and the frameworks. Who is involved? What are the goals? And so on. Second thing is create an overview. You can do that by knowledge maps, mind maps, by knowledge trees. Plan the measures. When you have this knowledge map, you have an overview, then plan the measures. What now is to do? When we look at this knowledge map, what should you do with that? Make a plan, set priorities, set the format. Also look at the time which is required and the involved people. Get the feedback. As the person who implements knowledge transfer, you get the feedback. Is this knowledge map and the measure planning correct? Is everything fine? Are the goals achieved also? And what are the work products then? And then you go and implement the measures. When we look at the clarifying frameworks and topics, then you see here the framework you should ask for, and in the categories which topics could appear. As you can download this presentation, I don't go into the details now. Make a knowledge map. This is a typical knowledge map. We have here the work themes. We have here the people involved, where it comes from internally, externally, where it goes externally, other people involved. You see how it works together. That's, by the way, done with Visio, with Microsoft Visio. You can also use a mind map, of course. It's perhaps sometimes a little bit better to read, but it depends on the case you have. Also here, very structured. We work more with colors here to get the things out of the map so that they really fall into your eye when you look at it. Make an action plan. What is to do in which time, by whom, and with which tool. And you can set priorities. Don't put priorities 1 to 10. Put 3 priorities, 1, 2, 3. Very important, important, and yes, also important. That's enough. And when you have this, then your knowledge bearer or yourself can really see here we have this. We have this time. In this case, these are 150, I think. Yeah, 150 hours. This is a lot, huh? 150 hours is a lot, but that's normal. When we do structured knowledge transfer, this is a normal time somebody has to put into to explicit his knowledge. It gets easier when you do it during time. So when you do knowledge management during the time the employee is here, when it is a process in your company. Yeah, when you have this, you start and you hopefully have 80% of the knowledge of this person then. So thank you very much. I hope it helps a little bit. If you have questions, suggestions, if you had a note to make, please feel free and put yourself on stage and ask me the question.
I was just laughing a bit. Maybe we can already go a bit in the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have stressed, of course, 3 main points of knowledge sharing and where it's needed. It's onboarding, offboarding, and sick leave or people are missing in the company. It's a matter of fact that we have here in at Hallo Welt, we mostly are contacted with if the people if the companies are growing, and so onboarding is a huge topic. So what can we do with new employees, and so but they always forget the offboarding, the retirement question. So it's typical a bit that they always forget this. I was laughing about this a bit, and maybe we can go dig deeper here. But there's a question here from you.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah,
You
from
talked
Mr.
about video that
Marsmeyer.
for small things it is proficient to lay out some 3 to 5 steps in a wiki.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you always have to look whether the thing you can, if you can describe it, you describe it. If it's difficult, you describe it in writing. No, if it's difficult and it gets more into information in shorter time, then you take a video or an audio, because you can say more in a video or in an audio than you write down. That's so you always can considering is it quicker to write it down and then it's there, or is it better to make a little video because then I get more information in shorter time. And people who listen to the video or look the video, they have more senses involved. No, you read it or you hear it, you see it. The more important the topic is, you also should consider more video and more audio.
Yeah. So we have, everybody has to address this challenge. So we see that we get, if you get new employees, mostly they ask for having a coach, somebody who is is responsible for them and helps them to find their way into the company. This is really a good way, but in the reality, mostly you don't have the resources for that.
Right.
And then you come up with the idea, okay, we create some videos, and it's not a secret. You never have times for the videos, because if you have time for videos, you should can also coach them. So the combination is interesting. And you say, okay, we have did coachings and trainings, and we record them, and this is what we then use for other employees. They say, okay, we have already some recordings. This is not really all up to date, but you have already 80% or 90% of the information you need, and the rest should talk about. So we make a mixture of in-person trainings, or learning by doing, and videos which are not only in the wiki, they are somewhere on a file file some file somewhere. It's not necessary to know where it is at the moment, but it's important to have a structure how you organize this onboarding process.
Hmm.
And uh, and this is what we provide in the wiki. We have something like the training plan, and so the new employee knows exactly where he or she is, or he gets already some ideas where he or she can look at. And that's how we find a way through that, with few resources, and having a wiki, and having and creating videos during the trainings itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's a good way to go, but I don't know if this is sufficient if it comes to larger companies. So for smaller, medium-sized companies, that would be a way, but I don't know if other companies, how other companies are dealing with that.
I think you can very well put general things in a wiki also in a big company. So how do I find my way through documentation? How do I find my way through the company? Who is important? When do I have to be where? You know, these are so basics somebody has to know when he starts into a new company. But the fact is that for expertise knowledge, you have to have somebody who helps you through. So even if these are the colleagues, they don't have this time, but also the colleagues, their lives getting better when they bring the new colleague up to speed rather quickly. And I just saw the question from Mrs. Link, uh, that she asked, yeah, but some people don't even want this legacy information they have when they come into company. Yes, that's true, and this is really a problem. These are problems for the team, because if somebody comes in new and doesn't know anything about the history of this job and start things right new, and the colleagues are sitting there and look into um, it look to each other and said, "Oh God, not again. We had that 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Every time it didn't work. Now the new comes wants to start it again. So
Hmm.
have to know the pitfalls. Even if you want to do things completely different, you have to know the pitfalls to not get into them again and demotivate your colleagues or your team."
Yeah. So somebody's saying, okay, if you don't like to get influenced, it's really bad. Yeah, it's maybe you are you are in the wrong place then. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
probably. Yeah,
yeah.
because you're not alone in this world, and you're not alone in this company. You have to adapt to the company's culture, to the company's history, to the team's history, and to your colleagues. And then you can do things new together with your colleagues. Then you have the support, and then probably something changes. No? But not if you try to do it like the I don't know how to say it in English, wie die Axt im Walde. No? Das doesn't function. Doesn't function at all.